Hey guys, it's Tori and it's time for another reading vlog. It is the 6th of February and I have started yesterday, actually, I started A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. I am so excited to be reading this. If you've been around for a bit, you know that this has been on many a TBR and I still haven't read it. But now I am. I'm 50 pages into it. I've read the first part and I really am liking it already. I am loving being back into Victorian literature in general, but specifically Charles Dickens and his writing style. There's not really any characters I'm super attached to. I have heard of Madame Defarge, and so meeting her, I was very curious to watch her, and I already am very interested in her character and excited to see what happens with her. Yeah, overall, I'm just really enjoying it. There's been a couple of really great descriptive sentences that have actually made me laugh, and I will be updating you throughout the week as I read this. I have split it up into sections of 50 so I can finish it in about 7 days. Maybe less if I get sucked in enough on one of these days, but that is going to be my main focus in this vlog. I'm also on an audiobook listening to The Mysteries of Udolpho by Radcliffe. I am not terribly far in this, but like right there, so not super, like I'm not in the beginning necessarily. But I'm about done with volume 1, moving into volume 2, which I think is where we go to Udolpho finally. For a little bit, I was kind of just slugging my way through it, just kind of tuning it out a little bit while I was driving because it was a lot of just travel and describing different places they're traveled to, which is nice and pretty, but I just like more story threaded throughout the descriptions, and I just don't feel like this was really doing that all that well. But I've really liked a lot of the supernatural elements that have already come in. I really like the atmosphere that's built up around that. It's very interesting because I feel like it's very much, there's kind of a tone of a little bit of more of a domestic novel, but then there's all these moments that are thrown in that are a lot more gothic in tone. And so I feel like it's creating a really good build up to where you kind of forget, like, this is a gothic novel. This is going to turn into something a little darker than what it seems right now. So don't get too comfortable, but in the moment, it's just this girl who's fallen in love with this man and she really wants him to be hers and he's interested in her back, but she has this terrible aunt that's taking care of her now and she's just awful. I really despise her aunt. But yes, I'm expecting it to get a little bit more dramatic over time because of the nature of what the story is and all of the supernatural elements that have been thrown in. So yes, I will be discussing this. I would love, honestly, to finish this by the end of this week as well. Do I think I can do it? Potentially. I have at work an inventory day tomorrow, so we're just going to be kind of tediously counting. Well, really, we don't just count. We actually use scanners and scan every single item in a certain area. So rather than counting and just hoping we're right, we actually have to let the scanner basically count. So because of that, I don't necessarily have to have my mind on it too much, as long as I'm just making sure I'm scanning each individual item. So I think I may pop in an AirPod while doing that and listen to this, but we will see what happens. I'm also a supervisor there, and so I may be required to do some other particular work. Not 100% sure yet, but if I am in a position where I'm just going to tediously go through all of the items in a certain area, then I'm probably just gonna pop in the audiobook and listen to that for a few hours while I'm doing that. So that could help me get through a good chunk of this. And then if I'm not in the mood to physically read, maybe I will take the time to listen to the audiobook while like cross-stitching or something. I have a cross-stitching project that I still have not finished. I'm a little upset because I've messed up multiple times in ways where I have to like completely redo things, and I just did again. And so I'm a little like discouraged about it, and so I haven't been working on it, but I may just leave the mistake there because it's not like it's like so bad that it completely ruins the whole thing. It's just something where I used the wrong color. It's a gnome thing, and so instead of having a beard that's like multiple colors, which it's supposed to be white and like a pale blue, instead of that I have one that has entirely pale blue because I thought I was using white. They're very similar when you look at them. It's hard to tell the difference. And so while I was doing it, I didn't realize until I had finished and looked at the whole thing that it was pale blue again, which I had already done the pale blue parts. And I don't know why, seeing them next to each other, I didn't process that they were the same color. I just didn't until the end. So it kind of just looks like he has like this kind of grayish beard, which is fine. It's not what it's supposed to look like, but like, you know, it's an early on project for me, so I feel like I should give myself the grace to have a mess up, and it will just add some charm to it. Like, this is my growth. I'm still learning, figuring things out. So anyway, I may do that throughout this week, but those are the 2 books I'm mostly going to be focused on in this vlog. However, I do have a few others that once I finish A Tale of Two Cities, I may pick up and keep all in this vlog. So first of all, I have from my TBR, I have The Diary of a Young Girl by Anne Frank. I've heard this is a pretty quick read, which is honestly what I'll need, because I've been doing some tallying and stuff with how many books I've read versus how many I have coming in. I recently have bought a few books, which, I mean, I had good reasons. I just didn't think about the fact that they were all going to come about the same time, and so it would make it harder for me to make sure I'm reading more than I'm bringing in, which is my primary goal. So right now I have read 5 books this year, not including Death by Shakespeare because that I don't physically own. So of the ones I physically own, I have read 5 of them. I've had 3 other books already come in. So right there, I've already read more than I've brought in. But by the end of this week, I'm going to have at least 2 more. And then next week, I'm going to get at least 3 more. The 2 this week were my biggest weakness choice. Like, I shouldn't have gotten them, but I did. They're coming, and like, I'm happy to have them. They're the ones that had the least reason behind them. I really shouldn't have done it, but I ordered from Thrift Books. I have a couple of Anthony Trollope books coming. I ordered 4 actually from them, but 2 of them I already have. So one of them I've already read, the other one I haven't read, but I already have a different edition. I just wanted to switch editions. So that's not going to add anything to my TBR. In fact, my guess is it might subtract a little bit because I think the page count in the new edition will be less than the page count in the edition I currently have. So there's that, doesn't matter. But the other 2 I have not owned, and I'm just getting them. So those are coming in. I'm going to have to add them to my physical TBR. The rest of what's coming next week, so those are the 2 this week. The next week ones are, I have solid reasons for having gotten them. Well, one's a pre-order, which you can say, is that a solid reason or not? But my plan at the beginning of the year was to decrease the amount of books I'm buying by having pre-orders set up, so I know that books are coming. And I'm spending about the same amount of money as I would on used books, but I'm getting less books with that money, which right now is what I need. So that was already going to come, and like, that was part of my plan. And then the other 2 are the second and third in the Farseer trilogy, because I just know I'm going to want to read them. So I know I'm going to read both of those probably pretty quick, but I still will end up potentially having more books, or I think I'll be right even if I finish what I think I'm going to finish. So if I finish A Tale of Two Cities and this, for sure, I would be about even, but I want to make sure that I'm reading more, like I've said. So yes, I'm going to read this. It's a shorter work, so that should be good. It's only about just under 300 pages, and like, the writing, I just don't think it's gonna take me too long to read. It's not like the writing is big or anything, it's pretty small, but like the breaking up of the journal and stuff, I think it's going to be one that I'll be able to read pretty quickly. So anyway, I'm going to read that. Then either between A Tale of Two Cities and Anne Frank or after Anne Frank, I'm going to pick up a really short something so that I can once again get ahead. So I have 3 options for potentially what I could read. So first of all, I have The Theban Plagues by Sophocles. Specifically, I just would need to read Oedipus at Colonus, because I have read Antigone and Oedipus Rex already. So I would just need to read this portion in the middle for Oedipus at Colonus, and that shouldn't take me very long. Like, it could probably take me maybe an hour at most, and so I can read that sometime later this week. The other 2 I have are a little bit longer, but neither of them are going to take me very long. I could probably read both of them in a day. First of all, I have Prometheus Bound and Other Plays by Aeschylus. So this is very short, as you can see, not including the introduction, which I don't usually read until after I've read the actual book, which I probably should just start prioritizing a little bit more, some introductions. But anyway, because I usually by the end forget to actually go back and read it. But not including that, this is about 130 pages worth that I would need to read, and it's all obviously poetical form, and so it's probably going to be pretty quick read. I read the whole Oresteia in one day, and that's longer than this, so I think that will be very doable. Or I also have here Through the Looking Glass by C.S. Lewis. I've read Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, and I actually started Through the Looking Glass, but I just wasn't in the mood at that point, so I stopped, and yeah, I haven't read it. So that is also about 130 pages in this, with the font being pretty big, and there's pictures throughout as well that kind of break up some of the pages. So I think, again, I think I could read this in like an evening. So yes, we're gonna see what I can get through. Like I said, these two, Mysteries of Udolpho and A Tale of Two Cities, are my main focuses for this vlog, but we're going to try to make it so that I have read more than I bring in by the end of next week. So this vlog's just gonna go basically until I finish all of that reading, and then my next vlog will probably be either Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson, the first book, or Royal Assassin by Robin Hobb. I can't decide if I want to just continue with the Farseer trilogy and just do that, or if I want to start into my Cosmere reading again. I don't know. I keep going back and forth, honestly. One day I'm like, oh no, I want to get into Farseer. I want to get back with Fitz ASAP. And then the next moment I'm like, I actually feel like I could start Mistborn. So it's, yeah, very back and forth. Also part of me though is like, maybe I should just finish the Farseer trilogy and then do the Mistborn trilogy, and then I can go into Lifeship Traders and kind of go back and forth like that, but we will see what ends up happening. But anyway, this vlog is going to be pretty much a classics vlog, which is going to be really fun. I hope it's fun for you as well. So I think my next update will be partway through A Tale of Two Cities. I'll probably do like halfway through A Tale of Two Cities, and then when I finish A Tale of Two Cities, and then I'll do when I finish Diary of Anne Frank or whatever I read after, and then at least one other thing probably. And if I actually do finish Mysteries of Udolpho, I will obviously talk about that in a clip as well. So anyway, that's the plan for this vlog. I'm going to get into reading A Tale of Two Cities. Okay, I was going to film this clip tomorrow, but for reasons of just a chaotic week and just my motivation right now, I decided to film it right now. I am going to have to do some adjusting to my reading plans for this video. Let me start by updating you on these two because I have still been reading them. I do intend to still read both of these. First of all, The Mysteries of Udolpho. I am over halfway through, which is very exciting. I only have a few hours left in the audiobook. I think it's like 7 hours, which it started at like 16, so that's quite a bit less. I was able to listen to quite a bit of this at work, and man, is this a convoluted story. I honestly got lost a few times as to what was happening, and part of it is that a lot of the things going on in this story are a little bit repetitive, and there's also so many dramatic things occurring and supernatural things occurring that it's hard to keep track of. Like, I'm losing my place as to what I'm supposed to be concerned about and what questions I have, because it's just a whole lot of ghosts showing up in random places and the main character thinking people are dead. Yeah, it's just a lot of chaos, I must say. There's a couple questions having to do with her father and a woman that went missing that I still want answered, and I hope this book does answer. I mean, I have how many pages? Almost exactly 300 pages left, so that's plenty of time for things to come together, so hopefully they will. It's just been a romp. Like, I don't think this is necessarily going to get a 4 stars even. I think it's going to be like maybe 3.5, 3.25, but it's just one of those books that's just enjoyable. It's just fun. It doesn't like hit me in my heart necessarily. I'm not very connected to the characters, but the drama is so great, and the narrator for the audiobook actually does the French and Italian accents, and so when they're having these dramatic speeches and dramatic conversations with the accents, it just makes it even better. So yeah, it's just fun, and that's all I can really say about it. It's just been a lot of fun. Nothing necessarily that I would remember for a very long time or anything. I mean, who knows? But it's been so much fun. I will also say it's interesting reading this because there's a lot of details in the story that really connect well to Northanger Abbey by Jane Austen, which references this book as the main character is reading it, at least for part of that book. And so it's fun to see those connections with this big house and this mysterious and cruel owner of this house. Anyway, yeah, it's great. I will say there are a lot of characters that drive me nutso, though. Her aunt is awful. Montoni is awful. Morano is awful. Annette is frustrating. So pretty much everybody is just obnoxious. Emily is too perfect. Like I said, none of them, I'm not attached to any of them, but it's just enjoyable. A Tale of Two Cities. I am not quite halfway, but almost. I'm reading it over 7 days and I'm on the third. I just finished the third day's reading. So I just have 4 days worth of reading left, I think. Yes, 4 days of reading left. I'm like, did I miscalculate? Yes, 4 days of reading left. And it's really, really great. I'm really enjoying it. Some thoughts, we're getting into a little bit of a love shape going on where there's multiple men and one woman, which I really only like in Victorian literature because it just works for the time period. It makes sense for the time period. It doesn't feel overdone or overly ridiculous in Victorian literature quite so much because there's a lot more involved in marriage than just love, which, I mean, today it's the same, but not on the level obviously it was in Victorian era, especially for women. And usually the women are at the center of the love shapes, so not overly connecting with Lucy, the main female character. She's definitely very flat, unfortunately. I mean, she's sweet, I don't dislike her, but she's not very interesting. Her father, I'm very curious to see how things go with him. I have heard a lot of people mention in passing, they aren't spoiling or anything, mention Sydney. And I have guesses about his outcome, and it's made me really affectionate towards him already. I know a lot of other people felt like they didn't really feel much for him until later on in the book, but because I have predictions for his character, I think I'm more open to appreciating him right away. He's just so sad and depressed, and it just makes me upset. I just feel like he is so down on himself, and I don't quite know why. I don't think it's told us why yet he's the way he is and why he feels so hopeless about his life. Mr. Stryver is probably the one I dislike the most, but I'm still interested in him. So it's not dislike just because I dislike him. I think he's just got an obnoxious personality, but I feel like he adds an interesting dynamic to the story. So we'll see how that goes as well. Dickens' writing in this, there's been so many things. I've been trying to mark it because for my podcast that I'm planning with my friend, I would love to do this book at some point, and so I decided to start marking it. So these pink tabs are where I've highlighted a few things that could potentially be good for the podcast, but I've also been marking quotes that I just love because there are some real solid ones in here. In fact, I need to go back. There was this one that was so good. It was describing this town, I believe in France is where they're at, and it was just iconic. I wish I could find it. I need to flip through this and find it so I can mark it because it was incredible. Also, the references to and allusions to the French Revolution that's going to happen in the future are so well done and beautifully just written. Madame Defarge, I know, is meant to be one of the villains in this book. I haven't really gotten to the point where she's clearly is a villain, but I'm already fascinated by her. Like, I don't know, but we'll see what goes on with her because she is very interesting. She seems to be the type of person who she's just constantly knitting, but she seems to be the type of person who's very observant and who observes and easily blends into the background and yet isn't afraid to stare someone down and make her point when needed without very many words. So yes, I'm very excited to continue with this. It's been a delight. It's been a delight. I don't think it will be a favorite over David Copperfield or Bleak House. I don't think it's long enough to be either of those, I don't think I'll be able to get as close to the characters with how short this book is. So there's that, but I still think it could be a 5 stars depending on how the rest of the book goes. Or for sure, it's probably going to be a 4-star. I don't think it's going to be lower than a 4-star, but where exactly it lands between 4 and 5, I'm not sure yet. So there's my updates for those. Now I'm going to get into some of my adjustments for my reading plans. So I'm afraid Diary of Anne Frank is going to have to be put on a back burner now because I received my copy from the publisher of The Secrets of Hardwood Hall by Katie Lumsden, or as you may know her on BookTube, Katie from Books and Things. This is her debut novel. It has a beautiful, beautiful cover, and I want to get into it as soon as possible, not just for her sake, but also because I'm fascinated to see how this book ends up going. So instead of the Diary of Anne Frank, I'm going to be reading this once I finish A Tale of Two Cities. I will potentially try to read Oedipus at Colonus, mostly because I just feel like I'd like to have this trilogy done and it's not going to take me very long. So I don't know if I'll read it between A Tale of Two Cities and Secrets of Hardwood Hall, or if I'll read it after The Secrets of Hardwood Hall, but I would love to try to get through this play before the end of this month and just have that done, just have it out of my life and know that yes, I have read it, it's done, we're good. So yes, these two are my plans. However, I do still want to make sure I'm getting a modern classic in because I just need to. I need to be working on that goal. It takes so much out of me, honestly, to get myself to read these modern classics. I don't know why they're so intimidating to me. They just are. And maybe it's just the style of writing, the way the novel went during the 20th century. There's some great hits for me, but there's also a lot that don't quite click for me as well as 19th century literature. So I'm trying to get myself to do it, but I've decided, instead of The Diary of Anne Frank, I decided to get an audiobook for Anne of Green Gables by L.M. Montgomery. I've had this for far too long, far too long. I don't even remember when I got this. I got it at the same time I got A Little Princess, which I'm pretty sure was before my mission, which I left for that in 2016. So it would have been in high school at some point was when I got this, and I still haven't read it. So I'm going to listen to the audiobook of this. It's actually narrated by Rachel McAdams, which is really cool. It was free with my Audible membership. So I got it. I downloaded it. So once I finish Mysteries of Udolpho, I'm actually going to listen to this before I listen to Romantic Outlaws, although I will still go for Romantic Outlaws once I finish this. It probably just won't be done until March, which is totally fine. Audiobooks, I'm okay to just let them take their time. Sometimes I like to speed it up, like with Mysteries of Udolpho. I made an extra effort to listen to that as opposed to BookTube for the past couple of days. So those are the new plans for this vlog. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish A Tale of Two Cities. We'll see where I'm at that point, if I want to just really quick run through Oedipus at Colonus and then start Katie's book, or if I just want to go right into it. I'm not sure if I'm going to keep this vlog going for reading this, or if I'm going to start a separate one with this as kind of a main focus. I think I might do that. That way I can kind of share my review. I'll make it a shorter vlog maybe, and then it can kind of work as my review as well as just a little vlog reading it. But yeah, we'll just carry this one on through this week at least, and then maybe next week after, like I said, I finished A Tale of Two Cities, I will switch over. So anyway, all that to say, new plans that I'm really excited for, new priorities for this reading month, and I couldn't be more content with them. Hey guys, so I thought I would come on here. I got a couple of books in the mail, so I thought I'd show them off. The first one I got is one that I have not read, but I already owned a different edition of it, and I just wanted to switch editions. So that book is Barchester Tower, by Anthony Trollope, which is in the Barchester Chronicles. Previously, I had this edition, this yellow spined old Oxford World's Classics, but I decided it was a little bit too, because they don't print these anymore, I thought it was going to be a bit too tricky to try to find all of the books in this edition. Not impossible, and I don't think it would take ages necessarily, but I just want to leave it so that as I get into positions where I want to pick up the next one, it's not going to be quite so difficult to find. So I decided to go change to the newer Oxford World's Classics editions. So yes, this won't add anything to my physical TBR because, like I said, I already own it. In fact, I may, depending on how the page counts match between the two editions, it might even subtract some pages from my physical TBR. So we'll see how that goes. I need to do the math on that. Then the other one that arrived is also by Anthony Trollope. Spoiler alert, the 4 books I got from Thrift Books recently are all by Anthony Trollope. I should, in the next couple of days, be getting my other 2 books, so I will show those off in this video as well. But this next one actually won't be adding much to my physical TBR either, at least to my page count, because it is the complete shorter fiction of Anthony Trollope. So yes, it's very chunky. However, I don't think I would ever just like read this straight through, and if I did, it would be like a reread situation. I think I'm more likely to dip in and out of it and read a short story or novella here and there. So I'm not going to add this to my physical TBR as far as page numbers because it's more of a reference kind of situation. I also didn't add like my complete Thomas Hardy poetry to my list or even my complete Shakespeare, just because I don't mind if those take me forever. I'm not as concerned about them. I'm gonna dip in and out of all of them here and there. So yes, this one will not be added to my physical TBR amount, but I am really excited to have it. I really want to read everything by Anthony Trollope. He's quickly becoming one of my favorite Victorian authors. I would say at this point, if I were to say my top favorite Victorian authors, obviously Thomas Hardy, and then I would probably say the ones that have started to come up in my opinion and I think are about to become favorites: George Eliot, Charles Dickens, Anthony Trollope, and then I would obviously say the Bronte sisters, specifically Anne and Emily. Charlotte I enjoy, but none of her books are favorites or even 5 stars for me. Jane Eyre is the closest, and that one's still like a 4.5 star for me. But Wuthering Heights and both of Anne's novels are 5 stars for me. So those two, Anne and Emily for sure, and Thomas Hardy for sure, and then Dickens, Trollope, and George Eliot are all kind of rising more and more in my estimation the more I read from them. So yeah, I really would love to read all of Trollope's novels and shorter fiction, which now I have that. So that is great. I think I'm going to have this clip, obviously, and then the next clip or 2 be solely focused on my haul, so you'll be able to see it all in succession. All right, book haul part 2. I did get a couple more books in today. It is the next day actually after the last clip. The first is one that I've already read. It is The Warden by Anthony Trollope. So similar thing, I wanted to switch this one out from the old Oxford World's Classics editions to the new ones. So that has been done. At least my first 2 within the series that I have are both matching, and we'll just continue to collect them as I read along. And then this last one from my Thrift Books order is actually another Anthony Trollope, and that is An Eye for an Eye. I don't know anything about this. I went down this huge rabbit hole of Anthony Trollope books that were on Thrift Books, and I have a whole bunch on my wish list now. But this one caught my eye, no pun intended, or maybe slightly pun intended because it was because of the title, and so I decided to look at the summary for it, and it sounded right up my alley. It sounds like it's about a young man who he is an heir to an earldom, but before he takes up his responsibilities, he ends up deciding to go to Ireland for a little while and just kind of, I guess, romp around. I don't know, and he ends up getting into some trouble and really impacting some people there negatively. It did give more details than that, but I don't know how much of that is a spoiler because, as we all know, classics, when it comes to the summaries on them, the writers tend not to care if you don't want any spoilers. So that's the vaguest version I'm going to give you, especially especially because it's so short. I don't want to ruin it for you or me to get too much into detail with it. But yes, I'm really excited. I honestly thought it was going to be a lot longer, so when it came and it was just this short, first of all, happy for my TBR, but also it's kind of nice to have another shorter Anthony Trollope because I have a few chunkier ones right now that I need to read between Barchester Towers and Lady Anna, which Lady Anna isn't huge, but it is a little bit thicker, so the fact that I have this little tiny one now is kind of exciting. Hey guys, so I did get my last few books for this vlog that I'm going to be hauling, and I actually kept them in the package this time so we can open them up together. Okay, except for one, Royal Assassin by Robin Hobb. I did already open this. I was just too excited, and it's been so hard to keep myself from just immediately reading this. We may as well open this one first because I'm pretty sure, I'm almost certain that it's Royal, the final one in the Farseer trilogy. What is it called? I guess I'll find out in a second. Yes, it is. It's Assassin's Quest by Robin Hobb. So I now have the complete trilogy. Very exciting. It is astounding how each book is like 200 pages longer than the last. I am excited to read these, but man, they're gonna take some time. And I'm a little bit sad that I have to add that to my page count for my TBR, but that's okay. I'm going to get to them really quickly if all goes to plan. So, all right, and then the other book I ended up pre-ordering is Prize Women by Carolyn Lee. This is a book following one of the strangest things I've ever heard about in historical fiction. Apparently in Canada in the 1920s, there was this man who passed away who was a wealthy man, and he made the request in his will that whichever woman in the area had the most babies within a certain amount of time would get all of his money, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, the recipient of his fortune will be the woman who bears the most children in the 10 years after his death. So absolutely bonkers, and we follow two different women who are involved in this, and that's all I know about it. That's all I need to know. I'm very curious to see how this goes. I really don't know. Yeah, it will be interesting for sure. Oh, that's really nice. I was a little worried because pages wise, when I was looking it up on Goodreads, it's over 400 pages, and I was like, ooh, that's kind of a lot to add, but it looks like the font is humongous, so I think this will be a nice quick read, actually. Maybe like middle of the road as far as time-wise to read, because it's still over 400 pages. So that should be all I'm going to get in this vlog, so thank you for watching my little haul montage, and let's get back into my bookish thoughts. Hey guys, so it is Sunday the 12th, I believe, of February, and I was originally going to do this clip yesterday, but I ended up going to see Titanic in theaters for, I believe it's the 25th anniversary. My sister and I went, we got to see it on the big screen in 3D, and it was incredible. It was a really incredible experience. I don't know if they'll ever do something like that again, so I'm really glad we were able to go. Definitely teared up many times. That movie is so interesting because I don't dislike the main characters and the main plot line with Jack and Rose and stuff, but like I'm kind of apathetic towards it. But the way James Cameron explores the Titanic as an event and as a ship and all the people who were on it and the trauma of the experience, he does so well with it. And so that's what I love, and that's what makes me weepy is the Titanic itself. So yeah, my relationship with that movie is very interesting, but it was really cool to see it in 3D because it makes it feel a little bit more like you're on the ship, like especially at the beginning when you're exploring the actual remains of the ship at the bottom of the ocean. Like it really feels like you're seeing it up close, and it was really neat. I also noticed a lot more details than I have when I've just watched it on a television screen. So yes, I had a great time, but it didn't end until we didn't get home until about 11, and by then I was just really tired, so I didn't want to film. But this morning I am going to update you on where I'm at. I have finished 2 works, actually. I was gonna say 2 books, but one of them is a play, and then I have updates on Mysteries of Udolpho and other plans going on. So first of all, the Theban plays by Sophocles. I read Oedipus at Colonus. I had read both King Oedipus, Oedipus the King, Oedipus Rex, whatever you want to call it, and Antigone, but I had never read Oedipus at Colonus, which is the middle of the trilogy of plays. And it's very much, you talk about second book syndrome, it's definitely a transitionary play in a lot of ways. However, I actually found that I think I like it it better than Oedipus the King. Oedipus the King is really important to have the context of it, so you need to have read Oedipus the King in order to read really the other two. Antigone, you may be able to get away with not knowing all the details, but Oedipus at Colonus, you definitely need to know what happened in the first play to understand what happens in that play. But really, why it was my favorite of the first two, was definitely because of personal taste. Like, I'm one that I really like getting deep dives into characters, into their emotions, and I really like seeing the fallout of traumatic experiences. And that's really what this play is. It's the fallout of the events of the first play, and we get to see a lot more into Oedipus's head, as well as his relationship with his daughters, which I don't think get explored very much in Oedipus the King, so that was really nice to see, especially going into Antigone, which is my favorite of the three. I ended up giving it, I think, 3.25 on Storygraph and 3 stars on Goodreads. It definitely wasn't high enough to be a 4. It wasn't like amazing or anything, but it was a really good read. And yeah, on Storygraph I gave it around a 3.25, 3.5, because I did feel like it was slightly above average, but it wasn't quite good enough to be a 4 stars when I compare it to other 4 stars that I've given out. But it was surprising that I liked it as much as I did. I really thought it could end up being like a 2-star read, but I did end up really liking it, and this translation did it in a way that really drew me in, and I really liked it. This translation, by the way, is by E.F. Watling, so if you're curious about that. But yeah, I did enjoy this a lot. It worked for me very well, and now I've read all 3 of the Theban plays by Sophocles, which is very exciting. Okay, now that that's done, let's get into the big one. I finally finished A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. Finally finished, as in I've had it on so many TBRs, I've wanted to read it for so long, and I finally actually did. I ended up giving it 4 stars on Goodreads, and about 4.5 I think is what I ended up on for Storygraph. I really ended up really enjoying this. I couldn't give it 5 stars because when I compare it to David Copperfield and Bleak House, I still prefer those two, but I still really enjoyed this. I feel like the writing in this by Dickens definitely stood out for me amongst even those other two that I love so much. There were so many quotes that really stood out to me. I have all these tabs marking where I have highlighted things so that I can go back and find them a little bit easier. A lot of them have to do, I'm hoping to, on my podcast that I'm starting with my friend in the next few months, once she's pretty much done with school, we're going to get started, and I know at some point we'll probably want to do this book and discuss it. And so a lot of these quotes had to do with the themes that I think I'd like to explore with her in our discussion on that podcast. But a lot of them are also just really great descriptions and just great quotes. I think some of my favorite things about this, so first of all, Sidney Carton, I started figuring out what his plan was towards the end pretty fast, because between what people have said about this book, they never give spoilers, but I've been able to put little tidbits together. And then with some things that are said towards the beginning of the book, even at the beginning of the book when we first meet Sidney Carton, I started to kind of put things, potential endings for his story together, but I didn't know for sure what was going on until towards the end, and I was very emotional towards that, as you would expect if you've read this book. My favorite things about this book, first of all, are the characters. So Sidney Carton, Madame Defarge, I found a fascinating villain. I also really liked Mr. Lorry and Dr. Manette. Unfortunately, I didn't really find much interest in Lucy or Charles. I felt like they were more like catalysts for the rest of the story, but I didn't feel that attached to them. But a lot of the other characters, those 4 in particular, really stood out to me, and then there were a couple other characters like Miss Pross that I enjoyed. So that was one thing, is David Copperfield and Bleak House have a lot more characters that I feel a lot more for, but I really liked those 4 in particular in this book. And then just the exploration of the French Revolution, like in Charles Dickens' descriptions of the French Revolution, the foreshadowing of what was going to happen in the French Revolution in this story towards the beginning. I really loved, as a person who finds the French Revolution fascinating, heartbreaking, but fascinating, I really loved his approach to it. I really felt like you can see that he has pity for what these people have gone through and understanding for why they want to fight back, but he also is horrified by what they end up choosing to do to fight back, and that things descended into chaos rather than into a world where justice can be brought forward a lot more for these people. And so it was really interesting to explore his thoughts on it subtly through the way he was describing things. I loved the use of wine throughout the book as foreshadowing and symbolizing blood. I thought that was really beautifully done. And ultimately, it was just a delightful read. I'm really glad I finally got to it, and I will be revisiting it for sure in the future. Like I said, I still prefer David Copperfield and Bleak House over this one, but I think this is my third favorite, followed by Great Expectations and then Oliver Twist probably. Honestly, I need to reread Great Expectations because I feel like, and maybe it's just not for me, but I just feel like I'd like to give it another chance because it was odd. At the time when I did my wrap up describing it, I think I ended up saying I gave it 5 stars, but really it was more of a 4-star experience for me. And even now looking back, I'm like, I might even lower it to like 3.75. My struggle was I saw the beauty of the writing and I understood people's appreciation for it. So originally I gave it 5 stars just on a more objective level of like, I understand. But for personal enjoyment, like, it didn't really stand out to me. I really loved, now I can't even think of her name, the main female villainess that everybody knows about, Miss Havisham. I loved Miss Havisham and Estella. I found their part of the story very interesting, but Pip and everything else that went on in that story didn't really draw me in all that much. I also liked his guardian, like his sister's husband. I thought he was really sweet, but he's not in it all that much. So yeah, I wasn't that interested in Pip, and so a lot of things that were going on with him I didn't really care much about. So unfortunately that one didn't wow me, and I want to give it another chance to see if maybe now that I've gotten a little bit more into Dickens' writing style and stuff, that maybe I'll like it better. But also it genuinely could just not really be for me. I may just be more into these other 3 that I've read, and that's just the way it is. So anyway, but yes, on this, really enjoyed it. So glad I finally read it. And I'm excited to discuss it with my friend who I'm doing the podcast with, because it's actually, she considers it one of her favorite books of all time. I think she would say A Tale of Two Cities and Wuthering Heights are her 2 favorite books. However, she has not read any other Dickens, I'm pretty sure, besides like A Christmas Carol. So that could change. But as of right now, I know that she would probably say those 2 as her most favorite books of all time. So I'm excited to just discuss it with her in general, and then also on the podcast, I think there's a lot of interesting discussion that we can have about that book. Moving on into things I'm still working my way through, Mysteries of Udolpho. I only have about 200 pages left, a little over 200 pages left. And unfortunately, it's kind of lost me. I just don't really have any affection for the characters. In this whole book, I haven't really had much connection with the characters. A lot of them annoy me, and the main character who doesn't really annoy me just isn't interesting to me. So it was really just the plot that was keeping me engaged in this story. However, it's become so repetitive and like it's not really moving forward very much that I just am starting to lose interest. It's a lot harder for me to feel inspired to listen to it, even when I'm driving. Like, I keep being tempted to listen to booktube videos or music or podcasts, anything but this, and that's really sad. So I still really want to finish this because I am interested enough to know what happens in the end. I would say probably at this point I probably would give it 3 stars, maybe even 2.75 on Storygraph, just because I think it's too long for what it's doing. I think if it was shorter, even like 200 pages shorter, like if it was over at this point, I feel like I would have been a lot more engaged. But it's just 200 pages longer than it needed to be, for me at least, so that's unfortunate. But like I said, I still intend to finish it, and hopefully I'll be able to do that in the next week. And I will keep this vlog going until I finish that. In fact, I'll probably keep it going through finishing Anne of Green Gables, just so I can have all of these classics in one vlog. So I'll probably not talk to you again until I finish the Mysteries of Udolpho, and then I will probably have the last clip be me finishing Anne of Green Gables. So probably 2 more clips, and hopefully this vlog isn't terribly long. Hopefully things will improve in Mysteries of Udolpho, or at least I'll be able to just get through it, and then hopefully I can finish Anne Anne of Green Gables before the end of the month. Hey guys, so it is the 17th of February, Friday, and I have finally finished The Mysteries of Udolpho by Anne Radcliffe. Unfortunately, towards the end of this, I sped the audiobook up quite a bit and just wanted to get through it. I think in my last clip I mentioned that there were some parts where it just felt a little repetitive, felt a little boring. Well, by the end, it was actually irritating to me. Like I said before, none of the characters stood out to me, and by the end, all of them had actually annoyed me. I was really disappointed with how the romance of the story ended. I actually wanted it to go in a different direction because the main guy, I'm sorry, but he was very toxic. There was a lot of, you don't actually love me because if you really loved me, you would do this and all that jazz, and it was just gross, and I didn't want her to be with him. So it made it even worse that for a bit it kind of looked like she wasn't going to be, and then all of a sudden she was, and I was like, I don't like him. Even if society accepts him now, that doesn't excuse some of his other behavior. He's just not very nice as a romantic partner, in my opinion. But that's besides the point, especially because even the main character, I didn't really care about her, and she even started to annoy me a little bit. But as far as a good, healthy relationship, this wasn't it. But, you know, sometimes that just happens in classics. I will say I was satisfied by the ending as far as the mysteries and stuff went. There were a few things that I wish maybe had been more dramatic than they actually were, but there were also a couple things that were as dramatic as I wanted them to be, so that was fun. But yeah, it just got repetitive. I didn't care about the characters. Most of them started irritating me. The servants really annoyed me. Of course, the bad guys annoyed me, but they're supposed to, obviously. And yeah, like I said, the main love interest started annoying me. Didn't end up loving it all that much. I did have enough of a fun time with parts of it that I ended up giving it 3 stars on Goodreads and then 2.5 on Storygraph. It had good moments. There were times when I was enjoying it, but by the end, like the last 300 pages or so, I just wanted it to be over, and I got through it as fast as I could, so it could be. So yeah, kind of a bust, which is a little bit sad, but hey, at least I've read it now. I know in my last clip I mentioned I was probably going to do Anne of Green Gables in this vlog, but I think I've changed my mind just because I feel like this vlog has gone on long enough. I haven't started Anne of Green Gables yet because since I just finished Mysteries of Udolpho, I wanted to listen to some other things, music and stuff, so I haven't started Anne of Green Gables. I do still intend to. And I'm actually reading Wessex Tales by Thomas Hardy because I suddenly was really craving some Victorian literature, and I wanted to read at least one more shorter book before I take on Royal Assassin by Hobb, even though I'm dying to read that. Like, I have not had this intensive a book hangover in I don't even know how long. Honestly, probably since like high school, maybe not even then. Like, I really don't remember the last time I was into a book so much where it's been like a week or two since I finished Assassin's Apprentice, and I still can't stop thinking about it, and I cannot wait to get into Royal Assassin, but I'm trying to get my TBR down, so I want to read one more shorter work before I jump into that, but I will be jumping into that once I finish Wessex Tales. And it's funny because it's not like it's ruined my experience with any of the other books. Like, I feel like all of my feelings towards all of the books I've read are what they would be regardless of me really wanting to read Royal Assassin, but it's still constantly on my mind. In fact, there have been scenes and things in the books I have been reading that have reminded me of things in Assassin's Apprentice. In fact, I just finished a short story in Wessex Tales that's about people at night on the seashore, and they end up coming across some strangers who have landed there, and it's Napoleon who's looking at the coast to see where he can land and stuff, and it totally reminded me, if you've read Assassin's Apprentice, there is a scene where Fitz is in a similar situation. He's on the coastline and kind of the enemy ends up coming up to the coast, and it really reminded me of that. And yeah, anyway, that's what's been happening in my head. But like I said, it hasn't negatively impacted any of my other reading. Like A Tale of Two Cities, still love. I think it's going to be a favorite of the year. Secrets of Hardwood Hall, which you'll see my review for a little later, also really enjoyed. A Man Called Ove by Frederick Bachman, I really enjoyed. So like I said, it hasn't negatively impacted anything else, but I'm really excited to get to it. That's all I'm going to say. So I think Anne of Green Gables and Wessex Tales, I may mention briefly my thoughts in that video in my vlog that's focused on Royal Assassin by Robin Hobb. I think I just need a little bit of a vlog break. I've been doing a lot of vlogging the past few weeks, which I love, and I still want to continue. I don't need to take a long break from it or anything, but I just would like to read some things without worrying about updating you. So anyway, this is the end of this vlog. Thank you so much for watching. If you've read any of the books I mentioned in this video, let me know your thoughts on them. If you're participating in Febregency, what are you reading? What have been some successes and failures for you? Hopefully I'll be able to finish Anne of Green Gables fast so I can listen to the audiobook of Romantic Outlaws, at least start it before the end of Febregency. And yeah, that will do it. So I hope you are having a wonderful reading week, and I will see you next time. Bye!